Thanks for everybody. It's a packed house, which is kind of nice, and a packed stage. So I'll let everyone introduce themselves, probably a little bit easier. Just name and kind of quick role.
Hi, I'm Arvind Balasundaram. I lead the commercial insights and analytics function at Regeneron, which is a biotechnology company up north from here.
This is Yousef Alhammadi. I'm from Abu Dhabi Early Childhood Authority. A government entity takes care of children in Abu Dhabi. And you say, what does that have to do with AI? I'll let you know in a minute.
Hi, I'm Arup. I lead the go-to-market team for AI specialists at UiPath.
Hi, I'm Tim D'Alessio. I'm not Love, in case you didn't realize that. Love got sick, so I'm filling in. I am the CTO of Techolution, and we are an SI that implements AI solutions at fixed costs.
Hello, I'm Mariano, Allegra. I'm from right here in New York, and I help run a technology recruitment business that does a lot of work in the AI space. Very nice to meet everyone.
All right, so I've been in a few sessions. I've seen a couple variations of the quote. Basically, AI is not going to replace people, but AI is going to replace the people that don't use AI. Something like that, a couple different variations, comes up quite a bit. So first question in the group here is, how have you used AI in the last week yourselves? Oh, our mic.
I figured you only need one.
Just do one?
Yeah. We can do this
Yeah.
happen. Okay, I'll go first. I sit on an oversight committee for a ChatGPT engine that we're planning to roll out to the company, and my pilot was to do, it's December, so I decided to do my year-end performance review using ChatGPT. Not a good idea.
At Early Childhood Authority, ECA, we run a global conference. That we also announced it yesterday in the COP28, the environmental convention that's happening. One of the biggest issues we face there is this knowledge that created from the community in UAE, by the community from UAE. So that part of the conference. Then the other one, a challenge came, how people will consume this information. And they were like, same information. We did that during COVID, so we had like 80 hours of videos and recorded meetings and forum. So we said people would like to see cartoons or animation or a short video out of those. So what we did, we are building with OpenAI now a ChatGPT for that conference, and we're offering this for the public globally, of course, not just in UAE, to go and consume all this content the way they like it and try to interact with that one. So that's what we did.
Thank you. So I did a fun thing. Everybody knows that OpenAI released this thing called GPTs, mini-me's. So I teach at a school. I teach at Villanova. I was teaching a course on AI ethics, so I decided to build a very simple GPT. I call it Arup's AI Tutor for ethics, and it was so easy, low code, no code. Spent 10 minutes, put it up there, and now my students can interact with me and not send me emails, and they can learn on their own. So it was fun, and I think the future is about low code, no code. It was so easy to build. I did check off the privacy box. It's way at the bottom. The data will not be used for training, so just be careful about that. So I had a lot of fun.
So let's see. In my day-to-day, I pretty much use it every day, mostly because I am a terrible writer and I can dump it into GPT and it can clean up my emails and my messaging, and it works out really well that way. But for the personal use, I've used it several times today in a lot of the demos that we're doing. Everything from detecting colors and shapes to quality control, all the way down to building custom LLMs for endpoints. So the most fun thing I did, I would say, was basically we have a digital twin solution where you can record your voice and you can actually do it in multiple different languages. And I had to have me sing Ed Sheeran's Perfect. So if you guys want to hear me sing, you can come by and I can play you some beautiful music, or do it yourself if you want to see what your own voice sounds like.
What about your face? Was it?
No, it's not I'm not as attractive as he is. Oh, you got your own. There you go.
Fantastic. Looking forward to hearing you sing later. But yeah, I can come at this from more of the layman perspective, as I'm not a practitioner. So I haven't used it for my performance reviews yet. I don't have that confidence in it, but more the content creation, sales research, and the call summarization, whether it's like Fireflies, MeetGeek, Otter AI. I do think those work pretty well. It does gather the sentiment pretty well. I've seen some companies begin to bring emotion recording into these calls. I've seen that be pretty off a few different times, but things are moving in the right direction.
All right, so good panelists. We all used AI, or I guess I didn't say mine, so I used it to generate the questions for this session, so that was easy. And I used it to kind of spar back and forth, so I acted as the GPT was a panelist and kind of talked back and forth. It didn't really give as good answers as these guys. But anyway, so what's the next step? So is AI going to take all the jobs? So that's maybe many steps ahead. But anyway, that's kind of the question in the back of a lot of people's heads is AI going to take the jobs? 100 years ago, agricultural jobs, we have 90% fewer agricultural jobs. But we have a lot more food. We have a lot more yield per acre, if you want to get into agricultural terms. People like my dad were able to find a job and do something else. But maybe AI is a little different. Maybe they're not. Maybe it's actually going to start displacing jobs. So, to the panel, I think Arvind wanted to maybe go first. Is AI going to take the jobs?
You want the top line or the deep answer?
We'll let Arvind come back. Arup, do you want to start?
So I have some stats. I'm still using old-fashioned cue cards. There was a report that was released by the World Economic Forum. And the numbers are as follows. In the next 1 or 2 years, 85 million jobs will be lost. But however, in the next 5 years, 95 million jobs will be created. So there is a plus side of it, right? But I think very important when you look at jobs lost or jobs gained, you got to really look at it in 3 buckets. Full automation, no automation, and augmentation. I think augmentation is very key, where you're going to have humans and machine working together. I mean, we see it all the time. So, if you have to really look at job displacement, you got to bucketize it. Are we doing full automation, no automation, and augmentation? That's one thing. And I think the other thing we're going to talk about it in the latter questions is really figuring out like what skills are really necessary in the displacement. And I think critical thinking, analytical thinking, just wait for some of these people. Emotional, people management, all that stuff, AI cannot displace. So it's going to be a good combination. So people like nursing will not be displaced. People who take care of old age people, that's not going to be displaced. I don't care how many bots you put in there. But overall, some of the lower value add work like customer service representation, research will be automated, but we'll have new categories of jobs emerging. But really, the 3 buckets I'm talking about is very important. Automation, augmentation, no automation. And that's the way I would bucketize it, right? So overall, I see a plus benefit, but I am concerned for some of the jobs will never be there because any disruption, some of the jobs never come back. So that's going to be very interesting to see what happens to those people who cannot upskill. That keeps me up at night.
All right, so World Economic Forum numbers. Arvind, I think you had a view.
Yeah, so I think it's going to come down to whether we talk about the subject from the point of view of what I would call technology substitution or an ecosystem transformation, right? And the economist, I'm trained in economics, the nice word for that is it AI for efficiency or is it AI for effectiveness? And the reason it matters is because AI for efficiency hits a business's bottom line. It's a cost efficiency argument. Effectiveness actually drives top line value, and that drives growth. There was recently some work done in France at INSEAD where a couple of professors used MBA students as well as a trained ChatGPT to actually do a strategic activity, which is to design a bagel bakery in Paris, which everyone understands it can be a challenge. You got to be really visionary to design this, right? And it's, if you read HBR, you'll see the case there. But essentially what happened was ChatGPT delivered a solution in 60 minutes compared to 1 week with the advisor and their students. And there were at least 4 or 5 areas of breakthrough opportunity that it identified that the students didn't. So I agree with Arup. Where I land, though, is I think as we get towards effectiveness, we are going to see some major job changes. Upskilling is going to happen real soon, and I think all of us will be using Arup's tutor to do that pretty soon on the business side.
Going to the economics, if we look to the work like Arvind and Yousef from Stanford, David Otter, and Smoglo doing, they're not just looking to the number of people or work displaced, but what type of task goes into those jobs. So maybe we can go to lower level task and see what the nature of those jobs will be changed or not, and how much of that job will how much it will be augmented. For us in childhood, when we say 2035 or 2050, that means a child born today will be 22 years old, right? And this child, she or he, will be facing that reality and in the job market, and what does it mean for them to be ready for that. So that's something we're looking at deeply.
Speak at all. So.
Yeah, I agree completely with what he said. I love the way he bucketized it and put it. And I'm going to actually pull on that a little and say that I think there are two kind of areas. The one is if you're below average or average in your job and don't use AI, I think you're in trouble, right? Like there's a lot of tasks that AI can do in those spaces, and it's a great assistant to leverage and to build off of. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that especially in like the physical labor gaps in the areas where we have labor shortages anyway, the things that are repetitive, boring jobs that really honestly nobody wants to do anyway, especially paying minimum wage, those are the ones that are probably going to go away and be replaced by machines. I mean, you can't even hire them. I mean, in manufacturing, 79% of manufacturers have open jobs. That equates to like 800,000 open jobs in the US, and that most of those are doing quality control and checks. And they can't just hire, they can't compete with Walmart and filling those opportunities. And those are perfect places to implement AI.
Can I do a quick, just ask the audience, can I get a show of hands? So within your organization, are there a surplus of projects that you would want to complete? Raise your hand, yes, if you're looking to complete more of them. So like this code completion, creation of apps, it's only going to push this level of productivity forward. We have the ideas, we don't have the execution. I think this is going to open all of this up to getting these projects actually done. It's going to help from a larger economic standpoint. I mean, if you see now, like this is where money in hiring is going. So I do see like in the future, this is only going to be a further proliferation of jobs and us actually completing some of the later jobs that we have in the pipeline more easily and getting more value from it. So I only think it's going to lead to more with pain along the way, as we had mentioned, the farming decrease.
So kind of to follow up on Tim's point, so there, half of doctors are below average, half of developers are below average. Any thoughts to how, is it the people that are below average that are going to become above average, like increase the floor of what people are able to do, or is it the people that are above average, it's going to increase the ceiling and we're going to get vast more productivity? Any thoughts across the panel of which is going to be more?
I really think what I said before, the essential skill, and we're talking about digital upskilling, is important, but it's also about EQ, critical thinking, because many of these tools would require the human-machine interface. So it's very, very important as we're doing digital upskilling, we're teaching people, especially the next generation, to do critical thinking analytics, because majority of the work will be done by the machine, but there's a human aspect and the human-machine collaboration that's still needed. Obviously, I don't want to talk about AGI. AGI is like 5 years, 6 years from now. But I think those are the skills are important. And there's a study that was done, by the way, recently with MIT and all, about people who are average on the jobs using ChatGPT, people who are very high level in the jobs doing chat. And there's like, you will see the study is pretty lopsided. People who are average got a lot more lift, and people who are very highly intellect did not get a lot of lift. So I think is making people who are productive, teaching them not just how to use digital upskilling, but critical thinking and analytical thinking and people management and EQ is going to be very, very critical as we move into this age.
So let's kind of push into that a little bit. What can kids do? What can professors do? What can organizations do to kind of right the ship or make sure people are prepared for this future?
Your professor, go for it.
So, I teach MBA and I also teach computer science. In my computer science classes, I teach graduates and I teach, don't want to get techie, NLP and transformers and all that. And I've told my class they can use any coding tool, any. But what I ask from them is, after you solve a problem, put the actual analysis of the output of the program into 5 presentations and come in front of class and discuss your logic, your thought process, and what is the output and what is the ROI. That is what we have to teach, because the coding can be done by 5 lines of inference. It'll generate the code. So yeah, so even if, and I'm teaching data scientists, right? So it's all about the other side of analytics, critical thinking, that's what we are pushing for, right? And you will see later on, you will have new jobs like AI product managers who are really critical thinkers to embed AI into the system. The tech is going to get commoditized. It's going to be low code, no code. And I'm a data scientist. I mean, what we trained 5 years ago, writing Python code, like it was so arduous, right? And today it's like 2 lines, it writes the whole code. So, I mean, my viewpoint, sorry, Arvind.
Yeah.
No worries, Arup. I want to add a view to that, right? I'll give the business practitioner side of it. I think the big area where there's going to be a serious gap and people need to make choices is in what I would call in augmentation, but augmentation under uncertainty. I think with COVID, uncertainty has become even more uncertain. And there are massive systems we took to be stable that now there's a whole different view of stability and forecasting and things like that. If you look at what machines are doing, managing mass amounts of content in multiple modalities, they're doing it far better than we are able to do. We just can't scan that much, we can't parse that much, put it all together. So I think even among data scientists, practitioners are going to have to become better storytellers, which means they have to become better curators. What matters to a story, what doesn't, is going to become a very important skill. How you integrate content is going to become a very important skill. And it's unclear now whether machines alone can do that, to Arup's point. How do you kind of augment it? And how do you then make the decision under uncertainty? You will get a recommendation, but should you go with it or not? Right, so those are things, Kyle, to your point, I think are huge opportunity areas for people who are looking for careers in an AI-guided environment, because we don't do it very well as humans today.
So just to go a little further on that, one of the things that we've built on the code conversion side is being able to take legacy code and old languages and convert it into modern ones. And once that's completed and converted, it's great. Like Tiavuti said, it's just an artifact that's there. But being able to then implement and work with the code through critical thinking and being able to say, hey, all right, now I need it to do this because of this, and then having it apply that logic to the code is super important. Like, it's not about the code, it's about the process, it's about the thought, it's about the deliverable at the end of the day, and making sure that you can interact with the machine to do it. The doing is what the machine's going to do. The controlling and the setting it up is the important part, and being able to then deploy it.
Yousef, do you want to talk about what you've done with kind of child development in this area as well, helping prepare them for the future?
This is always will be known unknown. We know there will be challenges, but we don't know probably what type of, Arup says like 5 years ago, like Python and coding and analytics is a big thing. We don't know in 3 years or 1 year what's going to be the critical skills. So maybe from a government and ecosystem point of view, we want to look at, how we even changing our way of teaching and updating and modernize our education system. Education for the last maybe 50, 67 years hasn't been changed a lot or fundamentally. So how education can keep up with the pace of the technological changes and being able to personalize the way they teach the students in the classes and outside the classrooms, and also helping the teachers and educators and caregivers in our case to be, have more time to interact with the child. And that brings up the other question is, what are the fundamental skills that every human being has to have? Is it the math, the physics? Is it the human intelligence? Is it the interaction with people? Is how to take care of nature? All those sorts of things. So we need to identify the lowest denominator of skills that's, no matter what technological advancement is happening, is needed. And then based on that, we build on this. And that's, I think, a tough question to look at.
I'd like to add to the more so childhood side of this. So in my role, very often I'm asked for not only the most up-to-date LLM skill set, but on top of that, diversity, okay? So we obviously cannot create people with these skill sets now. And I would love if government and organizations honestly took a more grassroots approach to this. I don't think that, well, for everyone in this room, we all love AI, it's great, it's gonna change the world, AGI is coming. But until then, and then more so in the mainstream media, I feel almost dare I say, AI is demonized or has this negative connotation, let alone on stage, we're talking about losing all jobs. In other rooms, it's been restriction, regulation. In mass media, you got iRobot, you have RoboCop where humans, Skynet, these robots are gonna take our jobs. And I think that we have a real opportunity with this AI hype cycle in both government and organizations, because the educators cannot, as you said, educators cannot keep up with the continuous change of technology, but organizations and government to go in on these grassroots levels, kind of make a more positive connotation around what technology, what it can do, how important it'll be in their future. And have organizations honestly go in and do super junior level workshops. I haven't seen that, and I do think that would pick up adoption, and it would make it attractive to those diverse talent pools way earlier on, where you'll actually start to see the fruits of it when AGI comes out, we'll say.
Just do a poll when AGI is going to happen, but that's maybe a tough question. So what are the actual job roles that people should be? So if someone's in college now, what type of job roles should they be pursuing? Prompt engineer wasn't a thing until a year ago. That's a big one now. Machine learning engineer a few years before that wasn't really a thing. Now maybe it's less of a thing because of prompt engineers. What are the types of roles and titles that people should be kind of looking at and preparing for?
Yeah, it's very interesting where the puck is going. So one thing is for sure, everybody heard of red teams? Anybody know what a red team is? Go to OpenAI/red teams, you will see what it is. What red teaming is, people from very diverse backgrounds, social scientists, political people, anthropologists, working with large language models to ground them. That's a very big area. So what you're gonna see is everybody's talking tech, computer science. No, the future will be somebody who's a sociologist who can understand human interaction working with large language models using red teaming. And this is the future. It's going to be infusion, because when we grew up, it was engineering, computer science, or you do sociology. But I think what's going to be very, very interesting is anthropologists, sociologists working with AI to create the AI, because AI is going to impact society. So that is going to be a big change. So you will see that, red teaming. Compliance is very, very important. You will see a lot of people called AI ethicists. I teach that course. Working with AI ethicists. The other one is basically human labelers. People don't realize ChatGPT doesn't come out of the box. It has to be human trained. There's something called RHLF. I don't want to get into the acronyms. It's basically reinforcement learning with human feedback. And obviously there was a lot of bad press. So you will see this human-machine interaction, to work with these large language models or whatever is going to be in the future, as well as people from diverse backgrounds, not just computer scientists, working in cross-disciplinary disciplines to work in this new age is what I see. It's not going to be about, I'm a machine learning engineer. This is what I see, and I teach these courses to very diverse backgrounds in my MBA school. So our certification is AI in the business school. All right? And I also see a big role for AI product manager, because it's not about the tech, is about building ROI from the tech. So there'll be a lot of proliferation of AI product managers and what has happened in the future, because we've got to get it out and make into an application. It's not about the models. It's not about the models. It's about the app, the ROI, the impact. So this is my viewpoint. Maybe I got a little passionate about it, but.
We like the passion.
Yeah, I got a lot of passion.
I'll answer in a little bit of a different way that may not be as well received, but and I'll preface the fact that I have 3 girls, so it's a little different of a space. But I recommend the trade skills, right? Like the electricians, the plumbers, the mechanics of the world. That's going to be extremely difficult to replace with AI. And for every 5 people that are leaving that area, only 1 is joining. So there's going to be a huge demand in that space alone. The other area, which I think, sales. You'll always need somebody to sell those solutions that even the AI creates. So those are the 2 big ones for me. My job is secure.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Arup said, right, from the business side. Like somebody, I mean, a big component of learning for the AI age is unlearning what we know, right? And one of the biggest problems we are challenged with often is, people are too specialized, kind of like Arup was saying, and you can never get a specialist out of their domain. And yet, that is exactly what the challenge is in front of us. And so are you able to kind of adapt and unlearn certain things and be more of a generalist? And to Arup's point, we work, for example, with anthropologists and sociologists, because it's a social ecosystem, it's a tribe, it's a culture. If you want to go talk about cancer, you have to understand the culture of cancer and the language of cancer and the experience of cancer. These are not tangible things that we can do traditionally. These are things that have to be done through natural language processing, through a lot of the multiple modalities that ChatGPT 5 will come up with. So it requires unlearning in my mind. And I think if there was one skill I would say that is going to become necessary now, it's unlearning before you can figure out what you need to learn.
Of course, multidisciplinary always is a good option, and being generalist is give you more options. But always, I think people will be, deep in their careers, or as they progress, they need to be specialists. Like, the physician, the surgeon, the engineers, the lawyers, and the economists. So they will still exist, those jobs, and there is always need will be with them. But I think whatever you do in your life as a job, you need to be a technologist at the same time. You need to understand technology. It's a mandatory tool that will always be necessarily a mandatory for you for a person to progress. And keeping up with technology, I think, an essential skill should be in the future.
Rightly said.
I just want to add one thing to what you were saying there, Yousef, is even if you take a very specialized skill today, like a physician, a surgeon, a specialist, I think one of the biggest fractures that we are experiencing, I think it's a semi-transformation, is now you are being forced to make decisions with data across silos. Until very recently, and even today, many companies and many decision makers, including physicians sometimes, traditionally when you went to a doctor's office, whatever data was there in that office was instrumental to your care to make a decision. With some of these engines, if they are allowed to explore, and if actually we can use data that sits outside of a silo, you can make a much smarter decision, right? That's a different form of augmentation, right? So we're all going to go through that. And again, that means an expanded view of how you look at a problem you think you had a solution for. And so that's where I think, Kyle, we talk about job losses, but it's probably a competency that we all need to acquire, because it's a very expanded view of the same problem that we will be confronted with in a different way.
All right, do we have time for one more, or?
Sure, or we can ask.
Sure.
Do you want to ask the?
Yeah, does the audience have a question you'd like to ask firsthand?
The AI space is being controlled, or is being attempted to be controlled by the government through politicians. Do you think it is a safe situation?
So just to repeat the question, so governments are controlling?
No, the government through politicians, they are
Okay.
by legislating. Do you think it is a safe situation?
So is it safe for politicians to be controlling AI? Are you talking about the executive order recently, or?
Are they competent enough to control?
So can politicians control it? Yeah. Who wants to get into politics?
I
can't talk about UAE.
I like this topic. Well, I mean, from my view, not a practitioner, just in the media speaking to them, I would say my personal view is no, they're not. Like right now, I think if you're working on sensitive use cases and you're working on LLMs, and this is now influencing like law or government, etc., and someone's on like an H-1B, I think you need to have the model audited by another body just for that. And like these models change so often, we're importing talent. It's going to be impossible. It's going to stifle innovation. So like at this point, I think we should probably make more mistakes, also gain some more growth in this space, and then maybe start to make regulations after what happens. I don't think my personal take is the preemptive regulation and legislation's getting in the way of economic growth.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the people leading these are not scientists either. They're just government officials.
I'll try to answer the question with a question and a poll. How many people here buy an entire album versus a song? How many people here buy entire albums, maybe even physical albums, as opposed to subscribing to songs on?
So album people first.
So it's a minority,
Minority.
right? So let's go back to Napster and what happened, and the amount of legal haggling and regulations, and look where we are with subscription services and music, right? So I think that's a natural tendency with any disruption, in my opinion. When there's an ecosystem that's in early stage of transformation, it's better to be guarded. We are up against that legislation, for example, biological modeling and with DeepMind and protein folding and CRISPR and all these technologies. But that's guarded. That's I think meant, as Mariano said, to be safe. But where will it go, and the inevitability of that evolution is also something that we should consider. And most cases of disruption end up progressing anyway in a much smarter way. So I still remain an optimist, probably cautious optimist, but my view on it is it's probably a good thing, but it'll settle somewhere in equilibrium where everybody will be happy a few years later.
I can talk a little bit about a UAE experience that we're going through here. We embrace the technological changes, and one thing few things we've done in the country. One of them is establishing the first AI specialist graduate school, which is MBZ AI. So this is all what they do at that school. We appointed the first AI minister back in 2017. There is a lot of openness for talent across from all over the world there, and we're building kind of golden visa similar to like the green cards and other, like 10 years or lifetime residency in the country. If you check on open models like the Falcon 180B, one of the top performers that we built a commercial company out of, and children are learning coding and gaming from age 4 in UAE. So these are things that the government back in UAE is doing to push the boundaries and making sure that the next generation of the country are ready for the future.
I think we have one, we can.
One more?
One more.
In the back.
What is your greatest fear
Greatest fear.
with AI being able to get to space? Not, doomsday.
Skynet in a couple of years. No.
Yeah. To give you an example, my biggest fear is knowledge and the accessibility of. I start to see like my nieces and nephews are learning less in school, mainly because it's so accessible. It's so quick, they can get the answers so fast, and with COVID, working, doing school from home, they were able to write papers really quickly, and there was no way for the teacher to really know if it was them that wrote it or a chatbot. So that's my
Yeah, so fears.
I think, from my perspective, is this new coming wave of agents. LLMs today cannot take action. In the next couple of years, we are building frameworks where LLM can start doing two things. They can do what's called active learning, because everybody knows LLMs are trained, and there's a knowledge cutoff date. So ChatGPT-3's knowledge cutoff date was 2 years ago. Now they released it because it takes about $20 million to train these models. But now people are releasing agent frameworks. So these agents can now take action. There'll be a world where agents are going to talk to agents, and they're going to be bad actors. People are not talking about the bad actors. People are using LLMs to create massive denial of service attacks. People are using LLMs and GANs to do deep faking. Half of the war coverage is filled with videos that are fake. So I'm worried about synthetic media. I'm worried about LLMs and agents. And I'm worried about using that as war instruments like cyber attacks against countries. So we have to look at the bad actor. The more openness we have, people are going to basically abuse it. And that's what keeps me up at night. Again, my perspective. Maybe I became very somber on this.
So I heard, I was just talking to somebody outside here a little earlier about this, and apparently there was a big video with the Heat, I think, actually, and they were looking at the identification, and they were using videos of previous games, and they were on a 2-game losing streak, and all of a sudden, they used AI to look at the videos, and the AI recommended based on the videos to bring in 2 of the bench players that normally didn't get to play. And they ended up winning the game after they did that. And the reason why is because these 2 guys were just full of energy going in, and they wore out the good players in the other teams. And they ended up winning because of that, because they couldn't keep up with the energy level there. And where I draw this to is what I'm worried about with AI is destroying the human essence of this, coming back to almost like a Moneyball based approach of this, too deep, where it starts to destroy the things that make us as humans.
So to not end on a low note, what excites you the most? It's a great question. But let's to walk out. What excites you the most about where we're at?
So I'll combine the two because
Okay,
I was going to defer with these guys. I'm a big optimist on AI, by the way, and I think with the internet when it came in, with electric cars when it came in, there were all kinds of fears, right? My fear is actually a good fear. I'm actually worried when we scale it, we will run out of machinery and resources to do it. It's very expensive to scale AI. It consumes a lot of energy. It's not climate friendly. And frankly, in a black box methodology, at least as it exists now, the quality of input needs to somehow correlate to the output you get at the back end. We're unable to do that very well, right? So those are my fears. It's a good fear. But I think we'll crack it someday. I'm still an optimist on that.
I think one of the best things happening is democratizing access to those tools. It used to be very special people who can go and build those models. Now everyone, that's a good or bad, everyone, mainstream people can go and build their own GPTs and models and can use those high intelligent systems for their own use.
Similar to what Arvind said, I'm excited for when the technology curve meets what essentially sequencing the human genome. That used to be millions of dollars, now it's cheap. And that technology curve hitting this, where we all have more personalized agents, I think that's going to be amazing.
All right. Anyone else? All good?
Good.
All right. Thank you so much.